Down the road.
So yeah, these were the comics he used to make, and he would post them online. So at one point, Sonichu was his son, and then in the police arrest tape, it's her husband.
In online circles,
weirdo.
the name Sonichu has become synonymous with delusional artistry, creative unoriginality, and poor drawing ability, and its creator is closely associated with the practice of trolling, though most remain uncertain as to precisely why any of this is true. In fact, Sonichu has reached such levels of recognition that Sega's marketing team has acknowledged the character.
This is on its own?
Sonichu?
No.
At first, it's difficult to understand how the comics came to receive so much attention, especially when they are of such poor quality. It features artwork that looks like it was created by an elementary school child, and the panel structure is confusing, sometimes relying on numbering the text blocks so that the reader can determine what text goes where.
That's crazy.
Even then, it's difficult to follow. The writing, which often takes up so much space that Alan Moore is put to shame, uses and misuses college-level vocabulary within confusing grammar structures. The plot is nonsensical, the characters are shallow and one-dimensional, and the main protagonist is a self-insert of the author whom every other character loves and respects. Even the setting, Quickville, is named after his initials. So what about it garners so much attention? What sets it apart from other terrible self-produced media, and how did it become such a popular...
Who the fuck is Alan?
social phenomenon?
What up, Carson?
The answer has little to do with the comic itself, and much more to do with the person behind it, as well as the internet denizens who first discovered him.
Now.
On the Something Awful online forums, there is a group of people who enjoy learning about and communally teasing strange and often mentally handicapped people from a distance, similar to the way that reality shows will gawk at people with strange, unique hobbies. In October of 2007, while discussing one person in particular, the topic was entirely derailed when a user offhandedly brought up someone else. They wrote their own real-life account of the person, stating, quote, "This guy used to leave business cards at my school's library where he would hang out for hours looking for a boyfriend-free girl. This is how I first learned of him. From here, I developed something of an obsession, culminating last summer when I made a special trip to a gaming store and local hangout where he had posted he would be. He was every bit as Aspergic as I had imagined. I present to you, Sonichu." This statement was followed by a link to a website hosted on Tripod. Though the archived version of this website is mostly filled with broken JPEG images and seems largely lost, the posts from some of the forum members paint a bleak picture. One comments, "Well, I think that link gave my computer HIV. Don't visit it if you value your sanity." Another states, "His page reminds me of a grand mal seizure," likely referring to dazzling and mismatched colors common to personal websites of the time. This website was filled with hand-drawn Sonichu branding, as well as the first 7 issues of the Sonichu comic. It was here also that
he was dedicated to his series.
Parties discovered the name of the man behind the creation, Christian Weston Chandler. In fact, it was difficult to miss. His name and his initials, CWC, were plastered all over the website in as many places as he could fit it. The forumites were quick to notice his embarrassing entry into a PlayStation Parappa the Rapper contest, which he had ungraciously lost, calling out the winner as stupid and no good while parading a website of his own creation, declaring himself the winner.
Kick, punch, it's all in the mind. If you want to test me, I'm sure you'll find that you all things that I teach you.
A couple of the members gave their own personal accounts of him as well, discussing how he got kicked out of a college one of them attended and that he wears a Sonichu
This is the lore of Chris Chan. We watched her arrest video earlier.
Necklace everywhere he goes. Some of the members, however, seemed unconvinced of Christian's authenticity. One states that, quote, "I'm pretty sure this is a relatively elaborate joke." This disbelieving attitude continued even when information was pulled from his completely public MySpace page, where it was learned that 2 years beforehand, he had been kicked out of Target for loitering. He describes this activity as, quote, "hoping to find an 18 to 23-year-old boyfriend-free girl like I usually do." His demands for an eligible bachelorette were also on his MySpace page. They included
boyfriend-free, 18 to 24, white, within 20 miles of zip code, under 230 pounds. Hey, that's real. Smoke-free, non-alcoholic, caring, pretty, cute, default language English, a virgin, hopefully, fully, coolly, knowledge optional. I'm not talking about anime. Under or equal to 5'10", open-minded, young at heart, employment optional, graduate from at least high school, fun, sweet, charming.
That they be white,
What
under
up, Pepper
230 pounds, between the ages of 18 and 24, and smoke-free. The things he could not tolerate in a partner included the person being a smoker, an alcoholic, real ugly, low functionally mentally handicapped,
Ugly.
seriously physically deformed,
Oh, my
medium or dark
that's
chocolate,
crazy.
and autistic.
Medium or
Despite
dark
the
chocolate,
dubious
that's
ethical
fucked.
nature of this list, the last point
Police
stands out
women?
especially because he admits himself to being autistic. He closes these demands by saying that, quote, "I apologize if I have touched any nerves that may cause sadness. I'm just being honest. But don't fret. If you fit under any of these conditions, you can still help me by spreading a good word about me among the 18 to 24-year-old boyfriend-free set. Thank you for your consideration. Have a nice day."
That's crazy.
One user expresses sympathy, stating, "I know this is something awful, but at
That's
the end
dope,
of the day,
Carsa.
he does have a
Congrats.
disability. I took a quick glance
Standards
at
are
this
too
and felt
high."
immediately sorry for the man." These misgivings, however,
Real
couldn't
Drake.
dissuade the interest that had set in.
To a point. Oh god.
Inevitably, Christian was discovered by a different forum, 4chan, which had been popularized due to the way that all the users remain outwardly anonymous when posting. They began researching Christian on their own and pored over his comics. It didn't take long for them to discover that these comics served as less of a
Never mess the truly frustrated virgin when he's on a quest for a girlfriend to share true love and trust with. Why is that something Ben would say?
outlet for Christian and more of a fantasy fulfillment.
For real,
The
Drake.
first two issues seem mostly to focus on the eponymous Sonichu, a mashup of Sonic and Pikachu, fighting Dr. Robotnik from the Sonic franchise. But by the third issue, the main character had effectively become Christian himself, with the villain being a woman named Mary Lee Walsh. This villain's name and rough likeness are drawn from real-life sources. While Christian was in
Damn.
community college, he had posted signs around the main campus building
That's crazy, making signs for a lady, single being.
about his, quote,
dope, Carson.
love quest, which included
Real.
his stringent demands for a romantic partner. When Christian refused to stop posting these signs, as well as holding a similar sign while loitering in public, Walsh attempted to talk him down in her office, but this only resulted in Christian mailing a threatening drawing to Walsh's house. He was then banned from the campus for a year and required to take anger management classes,
Damn.
as well as receive psychiatric
Give her
help
that, for
before
real.
being readmitted. Christian internalized
Just
this by
networking.
demonizing her in his comics as a stereotypical Saturday morning cartoon-style villain with the same name. Due to frequently being thrown out of
Damn.
malls and stores for loitering with his, quote, attraction
So, Chris Chan, you're also Christian Chandler, huh? Well, I took your heart and soul, so I'll finish it, and you will never attract a boyfriend-free girl ever. Goodbye.
sign, offending security guards and store managers are similarly demonized in the comics as villains for Christian to defeat, calling them jerk-hops and mana-jerks in a childish portmanteau involving the word jerk. Playing off of Christian's hatred for homosexuals, members of
Mana-jerks is
4chan
dumb.
began crafting
Bro, he hated homosexuals only to become one. Listen, the most homophobic people are always the gayest in the closet. What up, Lily? Like, they always thinking about dick in their butt, dick in their mouth, dick in their nose. They always think about dick.
crude, lewd
Dick in they
drawings of the
nose?
characters from his
Oh.
comics engaging in homoerotic situations. Along with this, a few candid photos of Christian were revealed from his
Made
favorite
glass, I
hangout,
fear,
a
for
game
real.
store called The Game Place. On November 3rd, only 7 days after the original thread on Something Awful was written, a page about him was created on a website called Encyclopedia Dramatica.
That Encyclopedia Dramatica is insane. Literally, it's just a website we can go. You can upload anything. Like, for example, like you could upload like in 10 years, like we're all like doing whatever, like the history of cynical lore back in the day, blah 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 blah, and it's just somewhere to archive anything.
Difficult to describe the site itself.
lying.
It functions very similarly to
Yo.
Wikipedia and even uses the same tools, with anybody able to edit or add to its entries. It often serves as a repository for information about online phenomena, albeit with a vulgar and purposefully insulting twist. On this page, the information discovered about Christian was collated, along with a picture of him at the game place and some of the homosexual fan drawings of his characters.
Old autistic man.
This page very quickly became one of the most popular on the website, and set in motion the exponential growth of interest in Christian Weston Chandler, as well as the efforts to tease and harass him. It wasn't long until Christian was alerted to the page made for him on Encyclopedia Dramatica. He initially seemed to misconstrue the attention, taking it to mean that his comics had increased in popularity. He also seemed to think that those talking ill of him on the encyclopedia page were not malicious, merely misinformed. He proceeded to give a short autobiography of his life through a YouTube video, talking chiefly about his elementary school and middle school years, as well as what he calls his high-functional autism.
I was in kindergarten.
And one teacher in particular of Providence Middle School, who I would like to give much kudos to, who not only let me, it was a good.
He closed the video by asking the viewers to edit the encyclopedia page to be more positive towards him.
Take them down, please. I'm asking, as an innocent victim of misunderstanding, just take down your web pages or edit them to positively better reflect my feelings as an individual, as a person.
The thing is, if you go on the internet and you beg trolls to stop, that only makes them go harder.
Predictably, this attempt failed, and so he began editing the site himself. However, these edits were quickly outed as being his own, in part due to how out of place the writing was, but also because he referred to himself in the first person in these edits, and, in some places, signed his name. The details he provided were numerous and often extremely personal, including his failed attempt at romancing his friend Megan, poetry, diary entries, and his ownership of a sex doll named Officer Nasty. In time, all of the edits he made to the page would be confirmed by himself with testimony and sometimes video evidence. He later would explain that he gave so much information away in a nonsensical attempt to force what he calls an information overload, though what he meant by this is unclear. As far as the fascinated readers were concerned, they had struck gold. As a perplexing response to the homosexual imagery, he drew his own pornography and uploaded it to his page. 4 were of his characters, but a 5th one was of him performing sexual acts on an unnamed girl as he gave a thumbs up. Some users thought this person may be one of Christian's fantasies and not based on any real person, but he made it extremely clear that this subject was supposed to be one of his only friends, Megan.
You were gonna do that with one of your only friends? That's wild, bruh.
The people reading Encyclopedia Dramatica, unsurprisingly, began to torment and tease Christian with the information he had provided to them. As long as Christian was reacting, they would continue poking. This began to bleed into his real life. He was summarily kicked from the church he attended when the pastor was alerted to Christian's Encyclopedia Dramatica page. The other person alerted to his antics online was Megan in March of 2008, who noticed the lewd artwork Christian had drawn of her. Deeply disgusted by his actions, Megan told him in an email that she believes that Christian, quote, defiled her. Christian's tone-deaf email responses attempted to downplay and excuse what he did, yet only served to reveal something even more repulsive about himself. He wrote, Megan, I am sorry for uploading the drawing, and I really wish I could go back in time and stop myself from making the mistake, yet I do not regret drawing the drawing, because if I hadn't released my frustrations in the creative sense, I might have actually done something really dumb and stupid. Megan replied by asking, what does that mean, abducting me and raping me? Chris also attempted to make her feel guilty, writing, Megan, I really want to remain your friend, but I feel it growing more difficult with the emotional feeling of long distance between you and me. I feel sad, lonely, and rejected when you don't allow me to be socially close to you or even when you won't talk to me. By the end of April, Megan had seemingly cut all ties. Shortly after losing Megan, Christian was banned from his last bastion of socialization, the game place, for shouting at a child and numerous other offenses. With the game place barred from him, Christian was left with very few ways of interacting with others. Meanwhile, people online began harassing Christian in strange and novel ways in order to elicit reactions from him, as well as to obtain more embarrassing information.
I live in Philadelphia. I also have girlfriend.
For example, one person pretended to be Christian, dressing similarly to him and making a Sonichu medallion similar to the one Christian wears, then produced videos in a reasonable facsimile of Christian's stunted way of speaking. Many others went along with this, giving Christian the impression that this doppelganger was succeeding. In response, he began making videos himself, giving out personal information as proof that he was the real one, including his phone number and home address.
That I am indeed the real Christian Weston Chandler, and that I am not that damn fucking imposter in brown.
The most prevalent method to retrieve information, and arguably the most successful,
Phone
was to
number and
pretend to be a woman
location.
interested in dating Christian. After easily winning Christian's trust, they would leak the conversations and pictures they received onto forums
People would
to
pretend
grow
to be girls and get this information, this out of them, and then they just leak it all to embarrass him.
the ever-mounting horde of data on
Real
him.
basically,
These
the
conversations
first dogs.
often had swaths of personal information freely given and often unbidden. Sexual information, photographs, and videos were often the most prized because of how ubiquitously embarrassing they were.
There's
One of
so
these
many
false
bad
girlfriends
videos.
was able to convince Christian to mail his Sonichu medallion to him, whereupon he made a video of himself destroying it. Sometimes, however, Christian would simply give away information, such as his tendency to soil himself. Again and again, he would fall for the self-branded trolls, and as time wore on, he grew more and more.
This person started like back in like, I don't know, 2002 being on the internet, and recently just got arrested.
Or embittered. This bitterness began leaking into his Sonichu comics, for which he believed there was now a wide fan base thanks to all of the attention he was receiving. He began inserting the trolls as villains in the same manner he had done to Mary Lee Walsh, some even receiving their own arcs. Christian's self-insert character also pushed farther into the spotlight, to the point that Sonichu only rarely would make an appearance anymore.
This is wild, I know. This is a short video of it too. There's videos that go way more in depth. Like, there's lots of videos of him naked, jerking off, all this crazy shit leaked that like these people were pretending to be his girlfriend or whatever get from him.
The more information that was learned of Christian, the crisper the image of the man became. Christian's existence was very childlike, with his parents, Bob and Barbara, caring for almost all of his needs and providing little incentive for him to be independent while he whiled away his days creating things out of Legos and playing video games. Though he went to public school, he still seems to be socially maladjusted, likely due in part to his autism. Christian's grasp on reality was tenuous, and he seemed to believe, at least in part, that the fictitious town of Quickville was real, and that he had the power to curse people. He lived in squalor.
Bob and Barbara,
his parents were hoarders, with junk of all kinds piled up to the ceiling, eventually spilling out onto the front lawn. The Christmas tree stood in the same corner of the living room at all times of year due to the amount of trash in the way, and video that Christian took of the shower showed it covered with bacteria and mold. One person remarked that he smelled of rotten watermelon, while others said he smelled like, quote, body odor masked with gallons of Axe. His psychiatry papers from 2004 note that, quote, he has been on antidepressants for many years. The psychologist went on to say that he may benefit from therapy, though it seems unlikely that he received it. The more these online bullies probed and teased, the more paranoid Christian became. He and his parents began to see everyone as a potential troll, and they seemed to sequester themselves off further and further from the outside world.
I will hunt you down, you damn dirty trolls. This is war.
Despite his paranoia, he continued to fall for ill-conceived pranks while jumping from one false girlfriend to another for years. The more information he gave, the more persistent the pranksters became, which only fed the paranoia. When his father passed of a heart attack, Christian obliquely blamed it on the trolls and the stress they caused. Christian's comics grew increasingly more vindictive. Death became a far more common theme as time wore on, and his fantasies turned from power to excessive violence. This grew worse and worse until issue 10, where his most hated trolls are placed in a kangaroo court where they are immediately found guilty for somehow slighting Christian. Each of them is individually given their own torture scene. One is delivered an excruciatingly drawn-out death by electric chair, one is hung against the wall and shot an
Let's read this. Session, all rise for your honor. who has a lot of things that ticks him off, greatly judged like Lewis. Discard what is bad for you and find use labels that you feel does match with you as a person, individual, and a sweetheart. Alright, this is my courtroom. This kind of trial is my special because the website of defendants, the idea is so awful. Take a bath full of toaster. Magi-chan Sanachu, please mind defendants with the start this show. Marvy Blaziken. Blaziken's a dope. Your opening statements, please.
Each of them is individually given their own torture scene. One is delivered an excruciatingly drawn-out death by electric chair. One is hung against the wall and shot by 3 different people. One is...
Jeez. Set me on fire, chop off my head, you... I'm not gay, and presses it. You killed my sweetheart. I'm not R-word. May God have mercy. Blood and gore. Bite back. Janitors need a ton of 409. All of Evan's blood and guts off the floor. Mom was hung. Lazarus Allison shot him dead as target practice. All Christian did. Like it.
Telekinetically twisted and deformed before his heart is exploded, and one has holes drilled into him by 2 other characters, one of whom is an extremely young child. The cycle of harassment came to a head.
Bro, they drilled a hole in his dick. /work. Black cut.
On the 28th of October 2011, when he and his mother, Barbara, assaulted Michael Snyder, the owner of the game place, where Christian had been banned 3 years prior. Over the years, the Chandlers had come to believe that Michael Snyder was somehow behind the trolling attacks.
Mike that threw him out. Mike's been persecuting him for years, and I don't like Mike. I'd like to speak to the owner of the place. I think lives up here, up the road from me. In Madison or somewhere. This whole thing was a
sir, the point is
in the very beginning with my son. Now I didn't like it then, and I still don't like it. Now what happened?
Though the details are unclear, what is certain is that Christian and Barbara drove to the store and began taking photos of the interior and its owner, who was outside the building when the photos were taken. The 2 hit Snyder with their van and then began driving away.
Oh my
They were quickly
God!
stopped by the police, however, and were sent to court where, in April of the following year, they were indicted. Barbara with failure to stop after an accident and assault on an officer, Christian with failure to stop, trespassing, and assault, likely against Snyder. Each of them were put on probation and required to perform community service, along with paying Snyder's medical bills. After this, Christian curbed his online presence, and focus on him dwindled. Over the next 3 years, Christian's mental state continued to wither away, while both he and his mother grew more sedentary. Junk continued to pile higher and higher, while their physical health declined and their funds began to run dry, much of it frittered away by Christian's compulsive credit card spending.
Jeez. No, for real, KFC, hit and run.
On January 10th of 2014, interest in Christian increased again when his house caught fire.
Damn.
Though the cause of the fire was reported as unknown, Christian later revealed that it was caused by a cord plugged into a socket in the first-floor bathroom. The insulation had worn away over time, and the heaps of junk had proven good fuel, spreading the flames. The firefighters were kept from the blaze for much longer than they should have due to the amount of garbage piled in front of the doors of the house, forcing them to use the windows.
That's crazy.
But this renewed online attention was short-lived. Even when he returned later that year to come out as a lesbian-identified male, intersex, and cross-dressing tranny who still detested homosexual men, the consensus seemed mostly to be mild amusement rather than enraptured interest as it once had been.
Jeez.
His delusions seemed to have not left him, as he had begun to campaign against Sonic's arms being changed from a flesh tone to blue in the franchise's most recent game, Sonic Boom. This eventually led him to pepper spray the clothes of a GameStop employee, but even this couldn't revive the fervor. There is still a section of internet denizens labeling themselves Christorians who keep track of his activities and collate them, but the tone seems to have shifted from that of bullying to a distant fascination. The output of comics has reached a sluggish pace, and it's uncertain whether he'll make more or not. Though he still lives with failing health, the heyday of trolling has come to an anticlimactic close. The phenomenon that is Christian Weston Chandler now serves as a case study of online harassment, while the man himself stands as a symbol of delusion and spite. His story is a lesson. The internet does not forget.
Spray painting people. I thought you said pepper spray.